So, okay, so good morning, everyone. Most of you probably know me. I'm Vice President of our Hastings Business Women's Network, and I just want to start by acknowledging everyone within our business network and our broader community, and sending a big virtual hug to you all. We're all thinking of each other at this time, our friends, our families, our teams, and our businesses. So many of you know that for our annual general meeting, we had planned to include a panel discussion. We were going to talk about the recent droughts and the bushfire crisis, and we were going to touch on the COVID-19 virus and its impacts, but life has moved pretty swiftly in the last couple of weeks, and now that is primarily our focus for our panel. We've also obviously moved it to a virtual panel, but we're still really delighted that we've been able to include some really great panel members. So I'm just going to go around and introduce, I'm going to ask each of the panel members to introduce themselves, because that means you'll come up on the screen as you speak. So we might start with you, Leslie, if that's okay.
Well, thanks, Kaylee, and good morning, and thank you for hosting what I think is a really important panel discussion, and hopefully we can continue to do it into the future. Obviously, my name's Leslie Williams, State Member for Port Macquarie, and I just wanted to say, I guess at the outset, that I'm thinking about all of you. It's great to be able to touch base in this way, and you know, hopefully that can continue.
Thanks, Leslie. We might go to you, Kelly, because you're next on my screen.
Hi, Kaylee. So I'm sure most of our members know who I am, Kelly King. I'm the president of the Hastings Business Women's Network. I'm also a business owner in the hospitality industry, so definitely experiencing COVID-19 at the coalface. So today, sending big hugs to all our members who are out there experiencing that. And yeah, looking forward to our discussion this morning and how we may be able to help our members through this particular time.
Thanks, Kelly. Cara.
Thank you so much. So I'm Cara Dale, and I run a consultancy business in Lake Hyde, and our business is about sharing knowledge of how the government can help all of our community and our business owners in relation to the opportunities and the financial support that's available. And I do send big hugs to everyone in relation to, we are going through a very difficult process, but together we can get through this.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Cara. And Janette.
Hey everyone, Janette Hyde, President Greater Port Macquarie Tourism Association. We've got nearly 200 members of the association, and they spread through various different categories. So I hope I can help support the thoughts that are going to happen this morning, and hugs to everybody.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much to everyone. So today we're going to do our first of many virtual sessions. We're going to focus on the impacts that the crisis is having on our local community and businesses, who's there to help us and how, some tips and advice, and maybe some insights into what's coming next. So Leslie, it'd be great if we could start with you, and I know everything's changing on a daily basis, but if you could start by giving us an overview of where we're at as a community, maybe from the local health district perspective, and also support available for our businesses, please.
Yeah, sure, Kaylee, and I think that's the really crucial point that we have to continue to convey to people, is that things are changing on a daily basis, not only obviously the statistics, but also what's available from government's perspective. So as of this morning, and we've just heard an update from the Premier this morning, there are 1,219 confirmed cases of coronavirus across New South Wales. But in saying that, you know, there are many people that are recovering after being tested positive. We've had close to 80,000 people tested, which on a national but also on an international scale is really quite considerable. And we're certainly continuing to ramp up testing wherever we can. And you may have heard today that in fact the restrictions on testing have been changed, and so now that's already extending out to healthcare workers as well as aged care people who work in aged care facilities. So anyone's who is in a vulnerable industry on the front line. Sadly, 7 reported deaths in New South Wales, and we currently have 16 people in ICU across the state. Locally, of course, things have changed considerably. If you think it was only this time last week, in fact, we had our first case of coronavirus at St Columba School. That has now increased across the local health district to 12 cases. 2 of those are currently hospitalised, but neither of them are actually in ICU. People will know that there is actually a testing facility now at the Port Macquarie Base Hospital. Obviously, there are instructions on how you access that, but if you are feeling unwell, it's really important that you ring forward. And again, those details are all on New South Wales Health website. And I guess, do you want me to go on to talk about some of the supports that are there already? So
that would be great. Thanks, Leslie.
Yeah. As said, like most things, if we I'll just touch briefly on restrictions. And again, like most things, they will continue to change. And I certainly am very aware, and thanks, I guess, much to the relationship I have with many members of the HBWN, including the President Kelly, certainly understand the significant impact this is having on small to medium business, particularly in hospitality and tourism. As I said, these will continue to change, and certainly the Premier indicated this morning in her press conference that if the current restrictions are not seen to have an impact, they will have to introduce more restrictions, and we need to be prepared for that. Don't panic, but just understand that what is absolutely our priority in this situation is saving people's lives. That is what we need to do. I should say that also, though, there has been changes to regulations around some businesses. For example, you may have also heard that in New South Wales, supermarkets and pharmacies can now operate 24 hours a day. In terms of state and federal government support, and I know Cara might talk about this in a bit more detail, I guess a couple of points to make. Again, things will continue to change, and I can assure you there are more announcements to come, and you need to keep updated with what they look like. And what I've tried to do is provide a means where people can keep updated fairly easily. On my website, lesliewilliams.com.au, I've just put a new tab, COVID virus. And so people can go on there, they'll see links to health, but importantly, links to government websites, both state and federal. The other point to make is that what we're trying to do in New South Wales as a government is to provide all information through one portal, and that one portal, no surprise, is Service New South Wales. And if people are needing assistance, whether it's any question they have about business or anything else, they should contact Service New South Wales on 1377 88. I'm sure that's a phone number that everyone's going to remember, 1377 88. I should say that we are employing an additional 1,000 new staff at Service New South Wales, because what we want to have happen is that when people ring, they will talk to someone. If we don't know the answer at Service New South Wales, we'll direct you to where you can find the answer. So it's all about making sure that we keep connected with community, keep understanding what it is that they need, and so that we can adjust support packages accordingly. I also note that the federal government has implemented a coronavirus business liaison unit. And I was speaking to Kelly about this yesterday. This is actually all about making sure that we as a government understand where there are gaps. And we know that there will be, and we can't put everything out there straight away, but we will continue to work to fill gaps so that everybody is supported, particularly around small to medium business, and particularly in regional New South Wales. So if you have examples through your networks, if you personally are someone who has a small business and you feel like that there aren't any supports there for you, particularly you don't meet criteria, then please contact my office. Now, my office, while the door is closed, like many businesses, we are still accessible by phone. And again, all of that information is on my website. So I encourage you to reach out. Don't sit there and worry that there is nothing for you. it is much better if you can be proactive and make contact with us. I'm not going to go through all of the different, I guess, supports that are available, but obviously in a general terms, we have increased the instant asset write-off criteria. There is cash flow boosts available for business. In New South Wales, we've changed the payroll tax thresholds, including waiving payroll tax for businesses, and there is likely to be more announcements around that space. We've also yesterday announced changes to long service leave to make sure that they're more flexible, both for employers and for employees to be able to access their leave during this crisis. But as I said, at the very heart of what we are trying to do is to save people's lives. So we've invested another $700 million in extra funding for New South Wales Health, and we will continue to provide them with whatever funding they need to make sure that we save people's lives. And I guess what I will talk about at the end of our conversation is about what you can do personally to support us in doing that.
Okay, that's so good, Leslie. So really good update on where we're at from a health perspective and what's happening to protect us and our families as this crisis starts to unfold even more, but also just a really strong message about reaching out and accessing information from Leslie's website and Service New South Wales. So thank you for that. And we might go to you, Cara, because obviously you've got some insights that you'll be able to share with us around how people can access financial support and the like from both the bushfire crisis and the current crisis. So if you can talk about the work that you do and how you've responded and how you can support people, please.
Okay, thank you, Kaylee. So our business is about helping regional business owners navigate the government and in relation to where opportunities specifically lie for businesses. So as we've discussed, it's changing daily. And I guess the biggest thing I would say is not like Leslie, don't self-exclude, ask the question. And we have done that for a number of businesses that are just outside the guidelines. We've been working with Service New South Wales on a number of businesses locally that need financial assistance but are slightly just outside the guidelines, and we are getting a very good response from the state government in relation to those businesses. So if we take a step back, we've had a really tough 6 months in relation to the bushfire impact that really started in July, but most people started to feel that in October at a local level. And where we have is firstly some opportunity for business support for bushfires. So there are a number of opportunities, and it does change daily. So only last week did the state government bring out a $10,000 cash flow grant for working capital. It's based on choosing 3 months since the bushfire impact and comparing that to your results in the 18-19 financial year, and if you've had a decline of greater than 40% sales. So on top of that, so what I am saying to people at the moment is, firstly, look at the impact that the bushfires have had. Generally, when a disaster happens, you don't feel the pain for between 60 and 90 days financially on your cash flow because you've already got previous cash flow coming in from the months beforehand. So the first step is to look at the bushfire opportunities that are there and the financial support that's available, particularly from the state government. And then the second option is, and there's also drought assistance, because up until February, we were actually deemed an intense drought area. So there are drought funding opportunities for primary producers and businesses associated with farming. Going forward, COVID-19, both the state and federal government are working very effectively and efficiently to address the needs of our community and our business owners. And currently, the biggest industry that's impacted is tourism and hospitality. But there may be others, particularly as Leslie highlighted, that there may be further restrictions to come on businesses. So what we need to do is harness the opportunities currently available under the bushfire, and as the COVID-19 starts to come through, we can then look at those opportunities. But every business owner, what you need to be doing is monitoring the impact that COVID-19 is having on your operation, the impact it's having on your sales. Does it impact on your cost of operation? There are a number of opportunities, and it is evolving daily, and I know that there'll be further announcements. We have also been doing our own advocacy with particularly the federal government about the impacts at a local level, and Janette's well aware of some of the work we've been doing just behind the scenes to make sure our region is heard in government, just like Leslie's doing. It's, you know, if we all are beating the same drum, our voice becomes much louder. And really, we are going through an unknown, heading into uncharted waters. But what we have is we've got the government, both levels, and including local government, really there to support business owners. And it's that knowledge. So Leslie's website on with information is quite important, because there is financial support from both the state and federal governments.
Okay, that's great, Cara. And it's also just reassuring because you're reiterating a lot of the messages that Leslie said. So that's, I think, one of the things that's really important for our members and for everyone at the moment is feeling that we're getting consistent messages, because it's such a confusing time. So that's really great. Thank you. Janette, we might go to you, because it's a nice segue into maybe giving us an overview on the impact that this has had on our tourism for our region.
Sure, Kaylee. And just before we do that, I just want to reinforce something Cara said. Obviously, we, with the bushfires, have been working with our members since January. The working capital grant was really appreciated. But again, people are reluctant to apply because they think it's so complicated. And Cara can probably go into that a bit more. The other one that's still available, I think, Cara, is the $50,000 no interest loan that's available. Yes. Would any of the HBWN members be eligible for that?
Yes. So basically, that is an LGA. So Port Macquarie Hastings Council, as well as Kempsey and Midnight Council, any business within those LGAs, plus there's many others, are eligible. Then there's an assessment about whether your business is directly impacted or indirectly impacted. So a direct impact to business is that you had the bushfire come to your property and you've lost infrastructure. An indirect affected business is that you've had an economic downturn, difficulty getting staff or supplies to operate your business. And at the end of the day, our area and the network, the Hastings Business Women's Network members, would be, it's worth having a look. And generally, it's not industry specific. It's more about the impact that the bushfires has had on your direct business and what that means. And it means that every business has a different story, but every business has had a form of impact. So yes, it's still available, and it's an opportunity. And we have been working with a number of members across different industries doing that paperwork.
Right. And it's really worth looking at. It's probably on your website, is it, Leslie?
There'll be links on the website, yeah, to all of those.
So that's really interesting. But as far as tourism is concerned, and it has been impacted the industry. And basically, we're talking about the fires as well as just tourism generally, and now the virus. We were very appreciative of the marketing that was done by the state government in trying to encourage people to travel New South Wales. And that was working, because we personally did a trip to the South Coast and across to Canberra and into the Western District. Everywhere we went, we were really appreciated. It was just mind-blowing to see the devastation that had happened. And I think that was a lesson for me, how close it was. But now, once we got that going, that impetus was happening and our members were happy. Now people are being told not to travel, which is fine. I understand that. But it's like another blow. They thought they were going to achieve something and now they can't. Ironman was a big disaster for them, because the area was booked out for Ironman. We lost a couple of conferences. We lost a couple of other sporting events. So the accommodation industry in particular is just reeling. There's no bookings coming in at all. And I think if we can support our cafes and restaurants with their takeaway program, I'm hoping that when we have more commitments to isolating, that will still be able to happen. So I'm happy to talk about that later, but that is starting to gain some momentum. So at least they've got some money coming in.
Yeah. Thanks, Janette. I know it's really hard to talk about, and it's really close to everyone's heart. So I appreciate you helping us understand that. Kelly, what about you? What have you observed in terms of our local businesses and how we've responded as a community?
Look, I think off the back of the bushfires, we've seen the strength of our community. Businesses are rallying, they're supporting each other. Many have, adapted and pivoted their businesses very quickly to introduce things like Janette mentioned, the takeaway home delivery services, and getting online apps up and running, virtual PT sessions and online yoga sessions. We're seeing lots and lots of innovation happening. I'm hoping for those businesses that it helps them financially to kind of limp through. I'm not expecting anyone to be racing across the finish line here, but hopefully we can see businesses still continue to operate under these circumstances in restricted and new and different sort of ways. Unfortunately, we're also seeing businesses already shut their doors in our community. It was sad to see some local restaurants already just almost feeling defeated, I would think, and say, yep, there's nothing we can do. It's 6 months and we're shutting the doors, and come and fire sale their equipment, fire sale their stock, and all of those sorts of things. So, and then of course you've got other challenges, and I think that as the time goes on, we'll see a ripple effect. So the businesses that are at the coalface now are feeling it instantly. And unfortunately for retail and hospitality, they often don't have that 60 to 90 day cash flow that comes through because their sales are instant, and they didn't have those over summer either. So, accessing some of these grants in 60 or 90 days will, could possibly be too late for them. So I think we really need to be mindful of that, and, where possible, support our small local businesses, because, these bigger corporations are far more robust and will get through this, but our small local businesses, which are the lifeblood of our community, need to be supported at this time.
Yeah, 100%. And, whilst we all know people who have been in that situation, Kelly, and they have had to close their doors and they have made that decision, what we're hoping to do what we will be doing as a network is offering different ways that we can provide emotional support and wellbeing and so on to people who that has occurred in their worlds. Yeah. But what we also want to do is continue to promote the business that are trying to innovate a little bit, doing some good things, following really good precautions and voting with our feet and trying to help them through. And we'll be continuing to communicate ways that can happen. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like a little bit emotional right now. So I feel like we need to go to you, Janette, because you said you had a really good news story that you could share with us.
Yes, I did. And the one person that I look to as an example is Dawn Marchment from the Breakwall. She has been absolutely amazing. She just won an award in the Australian Awards. She was third in Australia, so she got bronze. Fantastic operation, but it's just her general attitude. And I think that she has probably saved bookings. One in particular, she had a conference booked in, fairly hefty deposit, and she ended up talking the people into leaving the deposit with her and reprogramming it for next year in Port Macquarie. They weren't planning to do that, but I thought her positivity and her natural effervescence actually got it across the line. She's actually got her staff, rather than standing them down at this point, cleaning, painting, all of that sort of thing. That's awesome. That's a good news story. And we've had a few others, but starting to get few and far between now with no bookings coming in. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's really helping a lot of us through is just reading good news stories and hearing, oh, wow, that's something I can do. So if all of our members can continue to post in Poppy Connect, that would be really great. Not only so that we can support businesses that are still operating in different ways, but also just so that we can cheer each other up and share some stories and ways that we can help. I think, I don't know about the rest of you, but definitely feel like I've just increased my addiction to social network by tenfold in the last week, and probably for the right reasons, just so that you can keep each other amused and heartened, and that we can communicate about what's happening. So if everyone can keep using Poppy Connect, that will be really, really great. Leslie, we might go back to you and just and ask, what's your general advice for us as a community during this time?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the others who participated, Janette and Cara and Kel, because, I think you all made some really good points, particularly from an emotional perspective. And I think you're right, Kaylee. I think all of us are kind of, in many ways, in shock about what's happening, really anxious about not knowing what's coming. We don't even know what's coming the next day, and we're seeing those changes all the time. But I think we have to go back to the basics about what the aim of, a lot of the restrictions are in the community. And it is really, really important that all of us play a part to stop the spread of this virus. And that I cannot stress that. Even, it's just so important, that personal hygiene, hand washing, the social distancing, although that's probably going to be less relevant as we are all told by the Prime Minister, particularly a couple of nights ago, that what we should be doing is basically working from home if we can. Obviously not something that everybody has an option to, and I think it's really important in saying that if any of our members, or if anyone in the community has contact with some of those frontline workers, our health staff, please, I know you can't give them a hug, but make sure they understand how much we respect what they do, and how we understand that what they are doing every day is literally saving lives. And I guess importantly, make sure you keep updated with the health messages, but they are certainly becoming more frequent through the media. All of those things about if you're feeling unwell at all, you just need to stay at home. Just stay at home. And, the Prime Minister has got to the point now where he's saying, unless you need to go out, don't. The more people that stay home and minimise contact with other people, the better it's going to be in the long run. But I think that, I'm always one that likes to be a bit of an optimist. And I think there are some ways that we can look to positive things that are happening. And one of them is about, our use of other means of connecting with each other. And you touched on that, Kaylee. And I think more than ever, it's really important that we stay connected, that people understand. And I think that's where Poppy Connect is doing such an amazing job, is that there are different ways that we can stay in touch, and we need to do that. We need to stay connected. We really need to look after each other. There are people who are doing it extremely tough. Some people have had their businesses closed from the get-go, and of course those are continuing to expand. It's also about making sure that you check in on your neighbours. And again, of course, you can't do that physically, but that may be just giving them a phone call, see how they're going, dropping a note in their letterbox. But I guess in closing, what I can say is that on the Mid-North Coast, we were really hit hard by the bushfire. And we were kind of the first regional area to take the hit. But I think what it did was brought out the very best in all of us. We saw just such amazing acts of kindness, and I'm really confident that we can do that again, that we can get through this, that we can stay together and support each other. I think as we move forward through this crisis, and as has been said on many occasions, this is not going to be a sprint. It is very much going to be a marathon. And that means all of us are going to have to step up in our own, the way that we behave personally in terms of our hygiene and sticking to the rules, but also stepping up in making sure that we support each other.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Any final words of advice from you, Cara? Anything you'd like to share?
Just going on exactly with what Leslie's saying, we need to support each other in our community, and we need to acknowledge we are going through grief, and that process, it's a very tough process for both everyone affected, from employees to employers. The biggest thing I'd like to say is don't self-exclude yourself from any of the opportunities. If you're asked the question, and the government, both state and federally, are really trying to work with you. So if they, have enough information in relation to certain industries and certain gaps that are happening in our community, then the government can make changes and address those opportunities, or address those gaps. So the biggest takeout is we need to support each other. We need to follow the Department of Health's advice in relation to this virus, but we also need to support our business community and understand the government is there really trying to financially help businesses and not to self-exclude. So, if any member or anyone that's listening to this, if they want to just simply make a simple phone call, we can more than happy point you in the direction of what may be applicable to your industry and your circumstances. But it's about sharing knowledge. At the end of the day, with knowledge, we can stop this virus, and with knowledge, we can rebuild our communities.
Great, thank you, Cara. Anything from you, Janette, before we wrap up?
Yes, there is. There's two things and two different things. What I've done yesterday, and HBWN could do the same thing, I've analysed all of our members and worked out who's open, who's closed, who's doing takeaway, and, with accommodation, they're obviously open, so there's a fair few there, but 73 of our members were closed automatically the other day, so that's been tough. But I think sharing that with our members this morning, I'm sharing a couple of things. One is who's open, whatever's happening, and also those two links that I talked about, so that people can automatically go to them and start to investigate if it's applicable to them. So I think that HBWN could possibly have a look at that. You might have already done it, but a lot of your businesses are sole traders, so they could be still operating on the phone. So I think it would be important for people to know that.
Okay.
The other thing I want to ask Leslie, and I think that this is one thing that we can add a positive point to. We see who's contracted the virus. We see all over the world, but in Australia in particular, I think it would be lovely, because we've come through a fortnight now, just what the recovery rate is, so that we see who's got it, but what's our recovery rate? Because we don't get that figure. You can drill down, but I think that would be a positive thing to know that 80% of people who've got it or who had it are recovering. So is that possible to add to our information?
Yeah, I can certainly put that information up. Again, it changes all the time, but sure. I think what's important is that we are ramping up the testing in New South Wales, which I guess what that means is that you're going to identify more COVID virus cases, which is a good thing, because it means that we can direct them to self-isolate, and people will now be aware that the police will be following up people who should be self-isolating and perhaps are not. But definitely we are seeing a significant number of people who are recovering quite well. I mean, we know very well that many people may have had the virus, not even known they've had it, and now recovered. It's no longer in their system. But I think, again, the message is if everyone does what they need to do, the numbers are going to start looking a bit better. But that's not happening yet. And, I know very well the Premier is very concerned, not alarmed, but concerned, and she'll continue to put steps in place to make sure that we can minimise those that are contracting the virus.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much. Kelly, any final words?
Oh, look, firstly, just thank you to you, Kaylee, for coordinating this. And again, when we talked about people pivoting and adapting, I really appreciate, and I know our members will appreciate, that you've been the driving force behind HBWN adapting so that we can continue to get messages through and support our members. So thank you. And thank you to our panel, Leslie, Cara and Janette, for your time this morning. Again, really appreciate you taking some time out during what is, a busy and anxious time for everybody. And just to reiterate the same messages that everybody's had is that, we need to stay connected, and Poppy Connect is the, an excellent platform for us to do that. Janette, fabulous idea about us researching and identifying our members that are still operating so that we can assist them and get that information out so that we can support our members as well, who are still operating in this environment. But most importantly for me, I think the message is to be kind. There's people out there, health workers at the front line, the people who are still packing shelves and serving us in the supermarkets are on the front line. And I think at the moment, everyone's stressed, anxious, possibly tired due to lack of sleep. So I think that we just need to be kind to each other, and we're all going through this together. So, so the best thing we can do is support each other during this time.
Definitely.
That's true.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording in just a moment, but before I do that, I just want to wrap up by just reiterating the key messages that have come out of this morning's session. Some really great information, particularly from you, Leslie, around the importance of us as a community in stopping the spread of the virus and playing our part in what is actually a health crisis first and foremost. And then the second part of it is, from a business point of view, remembering what Cara said about looking after yourself and making sure that you're accessing both drought and bushfire relief funding, as well as the virus relief funding, and accessing help to do that if you can. And then thirdly, just the importance of the connection and being kind and staying connected, looking after each other, checking in with each other, and definitely as a community and as a Business Women's Network, we appreciate everyone participating in that, because it's keeping us sane, and we know it's keeping our other members sane. And so this will not be the last time that we meet on a virtual basis. We are going to be looking at ways that we can actually make it a participation event. So I can have up to 49 people on this screen, so look out. But I am going to stop the recording now, and we do really, really appreciate everyone who dialed in. I will ask my panel members to stay on. I'm just going to stop the recording. So thanks again to everyone for listening, and we will be in touch very soon.
Thanks, Kelly.